The next big concept that we're going to have to tackle is this idea of IPC, or inter-process communication. And the idea here is that we have a main window who is listening for its children. So if windows are created from the main, maybe a message box or some other windows are being created, if those children windows do something and they have the ability to send data back to the main's listening for that event to happen, can process it and send information back to the children. So let's look at that a little different way. So this is the syntax, this is the code that we'll be using. For example, let's say this child, somebody clicked on a button. That's going to trigger this. This is like an event listener. So when that button is clicked, there's this method that's going to be sent. It's called IPC.send, and we create a custom title or phrase, whatever you want to call it. And in this case, it's start. So main is listening for an event named start. When it receives it, on receiving that message start, that triggers it to run its function. Whatever its function is that it needs to do, calculate the data, concatenate, whatever it needs to do, when it's all finished, it will then do this, send a message to the renderer. The renderer is simply the child window. Dot web contents, so go send to that child's web contents. There's the dot send. Here's a title that we give it. Remember, this is just a user created title. And then we'll also have the ability to send data back to the child. So the child is waiting to receive some. Now these have to match, obviously. These names have to match, but those are user created. And so the child is sitting, so on receiving that event, that's called processing. It also receives some data, whatever data was sent, and it triggers it to run its own function. So this is how we'll send data between windows, and we'll see that happening with this demo that we will create next in a countdown timer app. All right, so now we're going to create an app. Let me see if I can give you an idea what it's going to look like here. So this is the idea, is that we're going to create this window. We're going to hit start, and we're going to watch a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and bingo, nothing happens. But this is the idea where we're going to be sending information from our window to our main, and then back from our main to this window using the IPC that we just saw in the slide a moment ago. So that's what we're working towards. All right, so that means, let's see, we're going to need to start on our HTML page and do a couple things to set up and get ready. I'm just going to copy and paste some code over just to save a little bit of time, but this is just HTML, so it shouldn't be anything that's too out of the scary realm. We'll call this countdown instead of awesome. Okay, and so what we've done is I've created a div that this is going to hold that countdown number 1, 3, 2, 1, and there's my class, and then a button. When we click on the button, we're firing off a click event that then we can trigger data to be sent to, or things sent to our main. So let's give that a whirligig and see how it works. All right, so remember when we created this HTML page, we used this script tag require. So instead of making a link now to a script tag, we're using require, and then the current directory, render.js. And in our render.js file, we don't really have anything exciting happening yet, but now we're going to make magic happen here. All right, so we need to, just like we've done in our main.js, we need to require electron. So we're going to do that. Okay, and then we need that IPC. So IPC equals, now this page is the child, if you will. This is the child of the main, and so it was the renderer, if you remember from our video, from our prior slide. And so we need to import or require or utilize the IPC renderer submodule in this child process, if you will. Oops, what happened there? Okay, so first thing we need to do is when the user clicked on the button, it fires off, and we need to create an event listener. Well, we've done this before, so this is just plain vanilla JavaScript. Document get element by ID, and the name of that, let's just double check. The name of that button was ID is start, so get element by ID start, and we're going to add an event listener. Click, and when we click, we're going to send an anonymous function. You can create a function, or you can do an anonymous function here. So we're going to do an anonymous function because we're getting very comfortable with that now. And the anonymous function we're going to do is we're going to use that IPC send, like we saw in the video, in the slide. IPC send, and I'm just going to give it, let's say, countdown. Now this is whatever you want it to be. Remember, there's nothing magical about this. This is user created label that I'm sending that's firing off a call or a wake up to the main saying, hey, do something. Okay. And so now that we've done that, we need for the main to receive that information. And so, or we need to set up a listener, if you will, for the main. So let's go to main, and we'll put this at the end. We'll put it at the end of our template here. So we're going to create, well, we have to go to the very beginning actually, and we need to create a constant. We're going to create IPC, and we're going to utilize electron IPC main. So this is the other portion of that main renderer that we saw in the slide prior. So this is the main, it's the receiver, it's the master, if you will. So we need IPC main for this one. So back down to the bottom, and what we'll do is create a listener. So just like in the slide, we did IPC, that's the variable name we just set on the very top of this page, on, and then we called it countdown start. Okay, and this has the potential to receive two pieces of data: the event and any arguments that were passed. Like if there was maybe someone filled in a input box or something. Nothing was sent in our case, but if they had, we would have had it here in args. But we're keeping this one pretty simple. That's an anonymous function. And so now what are we going to do? Well, I'm just going to copy some code over so I don't write. This is just vanilla JavaScript. So all I'm doing is right now copying, and now I'm pasting. And all we're doing here is we're just setting up in poorly indented code, setting a count to 3, and then we're starting a timer. Once we've done this, this great should looks like the great race. I'm console logging our count. Here's where this is the new part, so I'll get to that in a second. It's going to continue to run this interval until count is equal to 0, at which time the interval will be cleared out and the timer will stop. Here's my decrementer, and then of course we're running this every second. So here's the new part that we haven't done yet, and that is, remember we called this main window. So when we created that window back several videos ago, let's just slide up and remember that we called that window, when we launched that browser window, we called it main window. All right, so we are main window dot web contents dot send. Now we're giving it a title. Again, this is whatever you want it to be, but it's something new now. So I'm going to call this countdown, and we're sending count. So every time we loop through this iteration, count's getting decremented. Every time that happens, we're sending some content to that window, and the content happens to be that countdown. So that's all good. Now we have to go back to the renderer, and this is where the window sent data. It sent a event saying, hey, I want you to do something. It did something. Now we have to receive it. We have to receive that countdown that we just set up. And so we're going to do IPC on, on, and we called it countdown. So when we get a message back from you from the main called countdown, we have the ability to receive an event. We're receiving count. That's what the data is being sent to us. So we're catching it here in this art parameter. And our anonymous function then, document get element by ID. We called it count. Let's just verify that. So in this div, we called it count. So we're going to grab that ID and we're going to put this value in that. So inner HTML equals count. Whew. All right, so you see what's happening. So we've got an event listener that on a click triggered an event. We then sent a message, if you will, to main. We can send data to main this way as well, but we're sending sort of a packet, if you will, a hello message to main with this we're from the renderer. So we had to utilize the Electron IPC renderer submodule. IPC send, we gave it a title. Main was available to receive that title with IPC on, got that message. It also received, which we didn't do anything with, the event, which was the click event, and any arguments that were sent or any data that was sent, which we didn't utilize at this point. We did some stuff, and we did a countdown timer, and each iteration we sent information back to the window, back to the renderer, or back to the window, which then received that information and put it out into the inner HTML. Let's just run it and make sure this works. npm start, npm start, and let's just see it work. Okay, so on start, nothing's happening. So let's go to our dev tools and see if we can't figure out what our issue is. So I'll go to console, and it says that it is not acknowledging the event listener that we had set up. So in renderer, do you see how this is still really handy? Render.js, not that I did this on purpose, but it'll still work. So it doesn't like my add event listener. Document get element by ID. Let's see, what did we do wrong here? Document get element by ID. Start add event listener click, comma, anonymous function, IPC send. So let's see, what did we miss out on here? All right, so I looked and I looked, I couldn't figure out. Finally, I put this on pause because I couldn't figure out what the problem was. I get punchy after a while looking at these screens. I'm sure you can relate. Well, here's our problem, that we kind of did the horse before the cart here. So I'm going to move the required to the end of this script. And so that way the DOM should be in place before I try to access it. And now let's see if that doesn't make our lives a little bit different. And now when we count, there's our countdown, 3, 2, 1, and boom. So there you have it. Only reason why this looks different, obviously, is now we can just go back and adjust our CSS to change our code around a little bit. I leave that up to you. I'm sure you know how to do that. But that is sending data, IPC renderer, from the window to the main, IPC main, and then from IPC main back to the window or the renderer. So hopefully that makes sense. So the next thing to do is watch that tutorial video I put a link to, because now you have all the tools to work through the tutorial shopping cart, which should give you a lot of ideas for your upcoming to-do list, task list.